It is Wednesday, March 25th, 2026, and it's roughly 5:15 in the morning, and outside beautiful downtown Houston. I'm going to take a second to talk about relationships and how men can be more effective in them, and I've stated my opinion and believe that men need to follow the alpha seed side of women's dual mating strategy and not the beta need side. And not only have I seen it personally in my life, but these criminal cases that I've been covering really highlight the fact of alpha seed seems to be the better way to go, and the alpha seed side of women's dual mating strategy, if you're that man, and that's a mindset and a physical stature, but it's more of a mindset too. You got to have both. You can't just have one, and in this case we may see that, right? And so let's get into it. The criminal case I want to talk about today is Linda and Todd Stermer case, and this case is fairly old, but it resurged or came up again because she was released from prison because of they decided she was able to argue she had ineffective counsel, and they didn't use a fire expert, and some of the evidence they questioned. But anyway, so they gave her a new trial, and because originally she was convicted to life in prison, and that was in 2010. So they retried it, I believe, in 2024. And so anyway, but Linda and Todd Stermer met in 1989, and they were a really attractive couple. Todd was, tall, dark, and handsome, as she said, and he appeared that, he was the what you would consider the Chad attractiveness, right? And she was very attractive herself. And when they met, they hit it off real well. And she was coming out of divorce, and she had 2 daughters from her previous marriage. And Todd accepted her daughters and agreed to be the stepfather. And as I talked about there, that's always a risky situation right there, because we see that women don't seem to value that. They like it and they need it, but do they value it? I don't think so. As Rollo Tomasi says, shout out, hypergamy don't care, how well of a father you were to her kids she had from her prior marriage. And we as men think that there should be some equity there, or some buy-in from her. Well, I did this and I raised your daughters, and whatever. And I've been there myself personally, and I've seen personally that they don't see, for you or for myself, there was a lot of sacrifice I felt, and trying to raise someone else's kids while being in a relationship, and it's tough. I'm gonna tell you, it's tough. But I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not one of those people saying, never do it. But I'm saying you have to take certain precautions. You have to believe or know that there are going to be certain realities, right? But the women in a large part will not know your sacrifice, won't care about your sacrifice, won't even be able to. They can't even comprehend. It's not that they're not trying to; they just can't. So don't think that you will be rewarded because you took care of their kids. So anyway, Todd decided to have a relationship with her. So they were together 4 years prior to getting married. He had two sons. They had 2 boys together, Trevor and Trent, and good kids seemed like, and they were a family, they had 2 prior houses. prior to the one that becomes important in this case. And those two houses, there was some suspicion around them. They went up in flames. So there was a suspicion that there was arson involved, but no one was ever convicted and no one was ever seen as a suspect in those cases. So, but the third house they got was on 120 acres, and Todd, he built it all by himself. He designed it and he built it, with his brother's help. But he could work with his hands. He had amazing builder. So once again, though, that's kind of a bait aside. He wasn't rewarded for that. In the end, it doesn't seem like his wife cared that he was able to build this great house and had this nice piece of property, or whatever you want to call it, 120 acres, and was raising kids that weren't his. And in addition to that, his wife, Linda, also had a nephew, Corey, who really seemed cool. And they took him in at 2 years old. And he considered Todd his dad. And he called him dad. He called them both mom and dad. And they took him in as theirs. And they raised him all the way up from 2 years old to the time he was an adult, 18. And so, he was... he was really impressed, and he was really loved by his father and his mother. So, once again, though, as I just stated, it wasn't the equity or the value seen in doing that is not equivalent to the cost in raising a child like that. So just know that a woman will like it once, as I said. But it won't create the tingles. It won't create that, sexual arousal, and it won't even create more devotion. It doesn't seem. They think you're a nice guy, and they'll give you a pat on the back. Good boy. All right. You raised my nephew. Way to go. And my two daughters. Way to go. Right. And what's interesting in this case is, from his sons and from the nephew that they raised as their son. They all said, Todd, awesome dude, never abused our mother, wasn't physical. What did I say? In this case, she alleged abuse, and her daughters allege abuse. The only people alleging abuse is coming from the wife, who gets convicted of his murder twice, and her daughters. And her daughters had nothing nice to say about him in the interview. They were on 48 Hours, and they had nothing nice to say. Everything they had to say about Todd was, he had been abusive. He threw a laundry basket at our mom. And, he allegedly made some threats that no one else heard. And so, once again, not rewarded. And I've been a part of that, the kids, and it's not their fault. Don't think it's their fault. You just got to understand there's no good or bad. We're not saying, oh, they're bad people for thinking this or whatever. No, they just can't. And the fact that if you think in, the rule of, or the game of life, whatever you want to call it, you think that, they can care as much as, you did, or you think that they should have as much gratitude as you think they should, they won't. It's not going to be there. So just know that when you're in the process, but anyway, so, moving forward to the crime, 6 months prior to the crime, what happens, that we've seen in other cases. Linda Stermer, Todd's wife, is having an affair with a man at work, and they meet really quickly. It was like her first day, I believe. I'm not sure, but anyway, they meet, and he said, the man she was having an affair with, that she chased him. She was basically stalking him. He was a black gentleman, and he, as far as we hear about the TikToks, I need this much money, I need to go here, and you need to take me here, I won't go to Cheesecake Factory. We've heard all that, we've seen all that, right? Well, in the real world, as we see in these criminal cases, which I think display the real world better, is they didn't go anywhere. They went to in the trial. They asked the guy she was having an affair with, what'd y'all do? Where'd y'all go? Basically to his house. They went to his house to have sex. That was about it. They did go to a museum once. It was kind of funny. And they asked, did you go to dinner? No. Did you go to lunch? No. He goes, we went to a museum. That's the only thing. And it sounds like they only went once, right? And he allegedly was having sex with her anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week. And behind her husband's back, her friend who worked with her and carpooled with her said she had a burner phone. She had a secret phone that she carried. She would leave with the friend so she didn't get busted with it, and then she'd pick it up when they go to work the next day. And the friend also said she was able to show the police where this gentleman lived that she was having the affair with, because she said Linda would go over to the house after work and she'd wait in the car for 30 to 45 minutes. And they said, what do you think she was doing? And she said, well, it was implied what they were doing. So, anyway, so here's this guy that doesn't have to do anything, just show up, or she actually goes to his house, and they have a great old time, right? So, like I say, that's the alpha seed side, in my opinion. I've lived that life, and not, like I said, not bragging, not flexing. I'm just saying, as an average dude or whatever, that's out there. And these, you must take me to a 5-star steakhouse and blah blah blah. That's for the beta males. If you want to be a beta male, you sure she'll love that steakhouse, but you might not get that that genuine desire, that genuine arousal when it comes time to get intimate. But anyway, so what happens is Todd ends up getting wind of this after 6 months. He kind of notices that there might be an affair going on, and that's kind of what they're arguing about the day before he's killed in a fire. And they're having a huge argument. The kids described it as a huge one that sounded different than all the others, and they believe that this one was going to lead to a divorce for sure. They were also in debt. Now she alleges that was Todd's debt, but what was causing a large part of the debt was the horses. She was obsessed with horses, and she had 31 horses on her property, and Todd did not like the horses, and he felt like they were draining their budget. So so that was another reason for the argument. But the real reason was the affair. And obviously that's especially for guys, that's a true reason to end a relationship. And I say you must end a relationship. You have nothing at that point. You're done. So this is the night before, and then the next day the argument picks up again, I guess. And they're arguing some more about it, and the mom, Linda, ends up sending the kids. There's 3 boys. She says, I need y'all to go to the movies, right? So she gets them out of the house, and apparently she kicks the dogs out of the house, and she's putzing around all day. And she says, Todd's putzing around all day, and they're arguing and yelling back and forth throughout the day. And then all of a sudden she hears a loud scream, and she looks up, and the house is on fire up where Todd was, and she can hear him yelling about the fire. So what does she do? She tries to go help, but she can't help him. She has to run out the house, and she figured if she got out, he'll get out. Well, she also she had 2 cell phones. She didn't use any one of those cell phones to call for the fire department, nor any police or anything, right? So she thought it would be better to drive her van to go get help at the neighbor's house. Now, that makes no sense. What they believe she was doing was fleeing the scene, but prior to her fleeing the scene, other people saw the fire and came to help, so now she couldn't flee the scene. And then what next happens is, I believe, what investigators believe is that she gave Todd some kind of horse tranquilizer or something, and put him to sleep, and then doused him in gasoline, and then she set the fire. His clothes did have gasoline on them. They tested them. They couldn't tell how much, but they did have gasoline on them. She was seen at a gas station just prior to the murder, and she was seen not filling up her car, but filling up something inside her car, which in the front lawn there was a 1 gallon gas can. But there was no gas found on her. So again, she had that defense. But so anyway, so it looks like Todd had an accelerant put on him. They did find painkillers in his system. So she may have given him some painkillers and a drink. He may have taken those, but it does look like she might have used something to make him sleepy. So anyway, she was able to set the fire, is what investigators were saying. And so as she's trying to go get help in the van, Todd comes out on fire. And so now he's on fire, and apparently he puts himself out or whatever. And she claims that, she's going to help him. And she had 20 different stories of what happened. But what we do know happened is Todd was burned badly in the fire. He comes out. I mean, they said, and this is kind of nasty, but they said it, but it's true. They said his skin was falling off of him. Basically, they had to move him inside like a canoe or something because they couldn't carry him, and they couldn't put any defibrillators on him because his skin was too burnt, and it's just horrible, right? And she not only saw him come out of the house on fire, she also allegedly, and it was proven, she ran over him. She ran over him in the van she got into to allegedly go get help. So, and then when people came to help Todd, they had to actually pull her off of him, and it looked like she was trying to put her hand over his mouth, or because basically what they were saying was, and it does appear this way, is that she set the fire. Todd knew she set the fire, and when he came out of the house on fire, that it looked like she was going to have a witness to what she did, which would be Todd. So in an effort to silence the witness, she ran him over, and it is clear she ran him over. There was Todd's blood on the car and on the undercarriage. She definitely ran him over. So you can say, how many coincidences do you need? That's a little bit too many coincidences. She's having a sexual affair. They're having fights about money. They're having fights about the affair day prior to a fire, and she runs him over when he is able to escape the fire. And she doesn't call 911. She's going to get help in her van. So, and her sons, the boys, they're convinced. They've written her off. They're not talking to her anymore. So they're convinced she did it. From the evidence, it does seem like she did it. Her friend also said that used to ride with her to work. She also said that she would talk about how bad the marriage was. And once again, gentlemen in marriages, if you're not in a good marriage and your wife is talking about your marriage in a bad way, or talking to anybody about your relationship in a bad way, that's 100% disrespect. That's 100% you are in trouble. Your wife, your girlfriend, whatever she is, any girl you're dating, if she talks bad about you to anybody, which she won't do if she respects you, she won't do if she likes you, she won't do it if she values your relationship, because that is a reflection of her. And so women love to have a good guy around because it boosts their ego, right? So they're definitely not going to talk crap about a good guy. But if they don't value you, talking crap about your relationship is a key indicator that you are done. You cannot put up with that. There's nothing you can do about it other than, realize you're done. I mean, so a woman that likes you, a woman that respects you won't do that. I'm just saying, and I've lived that too. But like I said, the boys know or have a strong feeling that the mom was guilty. The mom was convicted twice. She had 2 separate trials. like I said, the first one was overturned. She had a second one, and she was convicted of that one, convicted of his murder in that one, and she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And this all happened in Michigan. So, once again, you have a guy who, built the house for his family on 120 acres, took in 2 kids that weren't his, took in a third kid that wasn't his, was known to be a great dude, an awesome athlete, very handsome guy. By everybody said he's just a, strong as an ox, tall, dark, and handsome guy. Just everyday, American hero, almost, right? The world's greatest dad type guy, that whatever he did, the house, the kids, parenting, providing, protection, the kids loved him. He was very good at sports. They said he played sports with them all the time, whether it was organized sports or just out in the yard. He was engaged with them. So, so like I said, but like we always say, look at the other, the guy she was having an affair with was not any of those things. And he, in my opinion, as far as what I would like, and I think a lot of men would like, is he got the best of her. And her friend said, and this is a quote from her friend, is that the guy that she was seeing 6 months prior to the murder, the end of the marriage, is he was the best lover she had ever had. And she told that to her friend. So women value that. They do value that. So, obviously that's not all you can bring, but I'm telling you, they do value that. And she was chasing that guy around. And like I said, he didn't have to take her anywhere. And I've said this before, the Alpha Seed guy, his presence, who he is, his ability to physically stimulate her, his ability to arouse her, his ability to, basically pleasure her, all that, it's very powerful to women. Obviously it can't be the only thing, but it's very powerful. And it's definitely much more powerful than he took care of my stepkid, or will be her kids, but he's a great stepdad. Yeah, that takes a lot more work, takes a lot more sacrifice, and for me it's a lot less rewarding than being the guy who's sexually pleasuring to her. That guy gets more value than the guy, that's taken on her nephew and taken on her daughters and built the house, literally built a house for them, and, being an awesome father, that's liked by women, but it's just not one of those things that's going to create arousal, like I said, in them. It's not going to create devotion in them. It's not going to create commitment in them. And so, having said that, and not beating a dead horse on this one, that person, that beta need side, is not what's going to be the fulfilling side of a relationship. But that's pretty much the Linda and Todd Stermer case. Once again, a cautionary tale. Once again, connect the dots. You can believe me or not believe me, but I think this is the 7th case I've done on this, and I think we're highlighting, or we're definitely finding a pattern. And what do we see in this one? We see a sexual affair going on once again. We see that person that she's having a sexual affair with, that person's getting the best of her, and she is, actively trying to have a relationship with that person in the most intense way. And, and the husband pays the price by disrespect and, and like I was saying the other day was, you'll get 3 things out of a woman if you're a beta male, and she doesn't respect you. You'll have a woman that is unwilling to do things, that is unfaithful, and that is doing things that are untrue or lie, right? That just create 3 U's, right? And so yeah, when she doesn't respect you and she doesn't value you, she will be unwilling to do things, she'll be unfaithful, and she will be doing things that are untrue, or she'll be lying to you. So just know that. And the first thing you'll see in a relationship is the unwillingness. When you have a woman that's unwilling to do things or unwilling to cooperate, right there is your key or your red flag. I mean, it should be a red flag waving in your face that a woman that's unwilling to do things, a woman that is highly interested in you, that respects you, will be glad to do things with you, will be happy, will have an intense desire to do things with you. And if that's not there, then you're in trouble. And that has to be created naturally. It can't be something that you manufacture. So anyway, that's about it today. We'll leave it there.